Welcome to episode 48 of Lifetime of Listening, an album every week this year to mark my 52nd year on planet Earth. This week, 2019, just a few records this time after the bumper harvest we were blessed with in 2018. A tricky year to gauge in a wider sense, given what was to follow, but still not good times. More climate change milestones, more elections going to authoritarian and nationalist parties, the beginning of Boris Johnson's disastrous tenure as Prime Minister, and yes, the first human case of COVID-19 recorded in December of this year in Wuhan, China. Closer to home, my son started secondary school in September, and I offered up my services to his former primary school as a guitar teacher for kids aged 7 to 11. Which was interesting. One of those experiences you go into filled with enthusiasm and good intentions, only to realise that A, guitar's quite hard actually, and B, kids of that age can be monstrous. COVID put paid to this new chapter in my musical journey, quite thankfully, if I'm honest. Yet this experience made me realise that teaching of any sort really wasn't for me. The only song that the kids wanted to learn was Old Town Road by Lil Nas X.
Not quite my tempo.
Enough of that then, on to the music. No diss on Lil Nas X. To start with, a few cracking albums from some indie rock stalwarts. First, Sunshine Rock by Bob Mould, which after a particularly tough period for Bob, losing both his parents in fairly quick succession, marks a return to brighter, lighter material, and I think one of his best 21st century releases. Back to the power trio format with Jason Narducy and John Worster. They've been fixtures since 2009. This one's perched right there between late SST period, think Flip Your Wig, and Sugar. And there's a refreshingly ferocious edge to the sound, pairing up with kind of looser, more upbeat lyrical twists. What Do You Want Me to Do? 30 Dozen Roses and I Fought burn harder and brighter than the material on Mould's more introspective albums of the 10s. And the cover of Shocking Blues, Send Me a Postcard, absolutely rips. The following year's Blue Hearts album saw Mould trying to address the state of domestic US politics. And for me, that doesn't quite convince. Sunshine Rock beats that album, hands down. Second up, the first of 3 albums from this band in this year. This is Guided by Voices and Zeppelin Over China. This one's a double, the other 2 are singles, and it's probably my overall favourite of this late period lineup of Pollard with Doug Gillard, Bobby Bear Jr., Mark Shue and Kevin March. You probably don't need a GBV explainer, but think psychedelic tinged post-punk, Wire maybe, crossed with prog-adjacent classic rock, The Who definitely, maybe a little McCartney, and all blitzed into shredded little blasts of lo-fi melody and surreal drama. A double album, so yeah, a few clunkers, but there are far more gems than paste on Zeppelin. The single, The Rally Boys, bodes well, but dig deeper and the Pollard nuggets really start to surface. Step of the Waves, Send in the Suicide Squad, Einstein's Angel, We Can Make Music. There are others. The new band had kept up with Pollard's frankly ridiculous creative pace over the preceding 3 or 4 albums, but this, to me, sounds like the one where they became conditioned, they found their legs, and they stayed in stride with him. It won't convert you if you've never clicked with GBV, but lapsed fans from their 90s pomp will probably get a lot out of Zeppelin Over China. Okay, this one was very close to being my pick for this year, so narrowly losing out is Reward by Kate LeBon. And there's a recurrent theme here for loads of these albums from the teenage decade of the 21st century, and that's me playing catch-up. This is Kate's 5th album, my first brush with her, and it was love at first listen. I hear a lot of early Rough Trade era post-punk in Reward, a dash of Young Marble Giants, space and minimalism, and a lot of the shifting, tumbling intimacy of the Raincoats, circa Oddie Shape. There's also, however, a sense of the vocal abstraction and vamping of Berlin-era Bowie, amplified by the presence of thick, expressive sax lines, playing off the clockwork rhythms and the fractured guitar lines. The oddness, the playfulness of the structures and arrangements, however, always resolve into something striking, or just plain catchy. Start to finish, it's wonderful stuff, and Kate's wandering, hesitant, hiccuping vocals are the glue that holds the entire endeavour together, like an improbably ornate mobile or sculpture. Or even better, a striking piece of designer furniture that somehow, despite its unforgiving angles and Spartan appearance, is actually surprisingly comfortable. Home to You and Here It Comes Again are maybe the easiest entry points, but the pistoning clatter and detuned piano of Magnificent Gestures, or the wheezing mothership heartbeat of Sad Nudes will snag you eventually. Yeah, live with it a bit and the rewards, will become apparent, trust me. Instead though, for only the second time in this whole damn series, nearly finished, don't worry, it's time to step outside the Anglophone world and appreciate some music in another tongue. The first time, that was way back in 1975 when I plumped for Radioactivity by Kraftwerk. Ironically enough, their first album in a mixture of German and English. No such halfway house this time. En français, c'est corridor avec Junior. And that's the limit of my hastily dropped high school French, so fear not, I'm not going to Clouseau this thing any further. Corridor hail from Montreal, Quebec, and Junior, their third album, was their debut for Sub Pop, being, I think, the first non-English language release in the label's history. The band are Jonathan Robert, Dominique Bertillon, Julien Perrault, and Julien Bacvis. And did these guys do a number on me in 2019? I'm naturally not going all in on the lyrical side of the band here, as I'd be leaning entirely on translation apps or services, and quite frankly that's both cheating and a bit risky. Besides, and this is both the point and the reason why I'm not going to be talking about this one too much, my motivations for loving this record are entirely sonic. The songs here are delightfully post-punk derived indie pop, leaning heavily on reverb-drenched harmonies and needling, niggly guitar interplay. On the surface, maybe not the most obvious bedfellows, but my goodness, there's some alchemy afoot here. The vocals may call to mind Fleet Foxes, Besnard Lakes, My Morning Jacket, but the guitars, they touch on everything from intricate jangle, to scratchy scouring, to post-rock harmonics, to math rock complexity, but always with an ear on the dynamics and to the melodic arcs that the songs tease out. Topograph kicks off with a locked groove riff joined by, layer on layer, a droning chord, a twisted martial take on the Tomorrow Never Knows beat, and the vocal harmonies. They mount and glide towards a serene sunlit peak, done, dusted, in a little over 3 minutes. There's a delicious push-pull between the exposed economy of the melodic elements and those rich, silky vocals throughout this record. Barely a trace of guitar distortion anywhere. These are sinewy, edgy tones sitting on that clean, dirty interface and rubbing your nose in all the interlocking joinery that's proudly on display. Flashes of influence peek out from time to time. I'm not lazily throwing Stereolab in here for the obvious French language angle, but the sustained midsection of the fabulous Domino rides a cresting motoric wave, which morphs over time into a dead ringer for the wedding presents Granada Land. The painfully chirpy edge of the guitars bottling that pinched lo-fi grit that was a signature of swathes of the C86 generation. Very tasteful deployment of warbly, phasing, vibrato-soaked synth lines across the record too, the breakdown of Goldie being a prime example. And occasional samples, environmental, vocal, rise out of the mix to shape the transitions between songs. The core sound, however, is of those bristling guitars working against the dreamy vocals in ever-invigorating patterns. The maddening jalopy riff of Microscopie and the crystalline jangle of Grand Cheval are a mid-album microcosm of the range of shapes that Corridor coax out of what is a pretty standard 2-guitar, bass and drums recipe. And you know what, I'll leave it there, I think. On paper, the French language element aside, it would be all too easy to pass Junior off as another post-punk revival album, rolling the dice and coming up with one of the finite number of combinations that that set of influences would suggest. But Corridor have a melodic knack and a sneaky edge to their guitars that instantly elevate it to these ears. Yeah, parlez-vous, who cares? Music's the only language that really counts, n'est-ce pas? Junior by Corridor, one of those kind of one-off discovery albums that I just couldn't shake from this year. What would your favourite be from this year? What do you think of Corridor? Let's talk about it down below. As ever, I would urge you to deploy a like for this video if you found out anything new or if you've just enjoyed what I've had to say. And why not subscribe at the same time if you haven't done so already. But that's the end for this video. I hope to see you back here again very, very soon. Bye for now.